So I wrote out some thoughts on today's events. I'm not going to try to appear as if I'm not reading. I'm just going to read. Today, George Floyd's murderer has been found guilty on all charges. Today, George Floyd truly rests in peace. I'm not going to say the name of the cop that killed him. I don't want to. I probably would have pushed back the release of Cookin' with TJ if I had realized that this would be such an auspicious 420. Events of historical importance seem to gravitate towards this day, don't they? The Columbine Massacre, the birth of Hitler, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. I suppose every day in history has its share of historical events, but 420 seems to get some of the real game changers. Today's events, hopefully, are yet another 420 game changer. This time, for the better. For far too long, we have seen that police in this country are, in some ways, held to a lower standard than the rest of us. For most of my politically aware life, it has seemed to me that police officers in this country walk around with what is essentially a license to kill. It also has seemed to me that the darker your complexion, the more likely it is that they will use this license on you. Already this year, we have seen the police gun down 13-year-old Adam Toledo with his hands up. We have seen them shoot a fleeing man, Dewante Wright, in the back with the lame excuse that the officer responsible could not tell the difference between her gun and her taser. Remember Christopher Roop, the boy who had a Wii remote that they thought was a gun? That kid was an ROTC. He wanted to be a Marine. He was an All-American. And he died like an All-American. He was murdered by a cop. That cop was not charged. It's amazing how police officers, the people who are most exposed to guns, the people who probably see more guns than most of us, have such difficulty identifying one. You know who else was not charged, by the way? The cop who shot Daniel Shaver in the hallway of the La Quinta Inn and Suites. I watched that video, okay? I watched Daniel Shaver drunk, desperately trying to comply with the cops' conflicting commands. When his pants started to fall down, he reached down because he didn't want to show his bare ass. And the cops riddled him with bullets. The cop in that instance was charged with second-degree murder, but was found not guilty by what has to be the world's worst all-time jury. I don't want to go down this horrible memory lane with you. I don't want to relive every single one of these experiences. We've all seen that police in this country can murder civilians wantonly and then fall back on the lamest excuses. Often, no charges are brought against them. When charges are brought, they result in not guilty, even in the face of overwhelming evidence that leaves no room for reasonable doubt. Because, for far too long, cops in this country have had built-in reasonable doubt. Because we have given police a job that does sometimes empower them to take human life, we have become of the mindset as a country that when they take life unjustifiably, that we have to accept that. That we have to accept that sometimes police make mistakes. In other words, we must hold those who we empower with enforcing law to a lower standard than the rest of us when it comes to violence. Today, perhaps, is the beginning of a new idea, a simple idea whose time has finally come, that the police, the men and women charged with enforcing law and order in our society, who are given a monopoly on violence backed by the power of the state, should be held not to a lower standard than the rest of us, but to a higher one. Currently, you have to undergo more training to be a hairdresser than you do a police officer. Now look, I'm not knocking the hairdressing profession in any way, shape, or form. But if we have an epidemic of bad hairdressers, the worst consequences of that is that we walk around looking like a bunch of dorks with bad haircuts. I have no idea if that joke is ironic, by the way. I don't know if this looks good at all. You can let me know. When there's a systemic problem with cops, though, it's no laughing matter. People die. People get murdered. People get away with murder. Now let me say the obvious. Today's verdict does not solve the problem of racism. It does not solve the intersecting, but not completely overlapping problem of police brutality. There are policy discussions that we should be having that we're not. There are people out there with big voices decrying this verdict today who are so afraid of change that they will defend a system of lawlessness and murder. For some, they fight for the status quo just because it's what they're used to. Others fight for the status quo because they are scared and or hateful of black people. Whatever their reasons may be, these bootlickers are out there, and they could still very much win the ideological battle for the soul of this nation. So, while this is a watershed moment, or has the potential to be, let's not forget that the fight continues. I love you all, even those of you who are still lost. May George Floyd continue to rest in power. May the reverberations of this day transform what is and has long been broken into something that truly serves and that truly protects. May the day come when we no longer have to celebrate with jubilation the simple act of holding a murderer accountable. May the day even come when no human being takes the life of another. I'm the Amazing Atheist. Peace.